Mortgage rates are likely to stay low, which means it might be a good time for millennials to think about buying a house. Here with us is Sam DeBianchi, DeBianchi Real Estate founder, on her housing outlook for the new year. Sam, welcome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
So to that end, what is your housing outlook for this new decade and this new year? Well, you don't have to give me for the whole decade, but that's what I've been calling it. I've been calling 2020 the new decade.
2027. Super rich if I could predict that far out.
Right.
So, but yes, mortgage rates, I mean, we saw this year 3.5% for a 30-year fix, which is kind of incredible because years before, people were saying, oh, they're going to go to 5%, 6%, and we never saw that. Maybe if you're buying an investment property or something like that, but we never saw that for a primary home for a 30-year fixed. However, coming into next year, people say, well, we're definitely not going to see 3.5. We might see upwards of that. We might even see just over 4%, which is what I personally think will happen. I think even though if it is 4%, 4.2%, that's still really, really low and should encourage people to go ahead and buy if you can and if it makes more sense.
Right. So we have seen the housing market a little bit under pressure.
Sure.
Do you think that that's going to pick up in this next year, especially with the mortgage rates low? I mean, we mentioned millennials right in the intro, but right. Millennials, of course, famously deciding not to buy homes at all.
Millennials are all over the place. They make up about 36% of the home buying pool, but they are. I mean, I'm a millennial, I'm 35. Then I believe a 25-year-old is a millennial as well. So it's a very different person, and there's people that do things differently. So for example, you know, I rent my primary, but I own 9 homes. And I do that because I make all kinds of income with all of those properties, and it pays for my rent and puts money in my pocket. Now, depending on other markets, it might make more sense to own your primary, not own anything else. Let's take San Francisco, where, you know, the median price point there is 1.3 million, okay? And then you've got a 1-bedroom rental for $3,600 a month, which is insane. But in that case, it makes more sense to rent than to buy. And again, you're looking at the millennial that might rent and then buy in other markets. Maybe cities in Alabama, for example, can produce 10% returns, places in Tennessee, I mean, all over the country. Just because you're saying, I want to buy, doesn't mean it has to be your primary.
And the other thing you've been looking into for quite some time is the whole Airbnb rental situation. We know, at least over the past couple of months, there's been a lot of regulation surrounding that. So yes. I guess what is your outlook on that corner of the real estate market?
So I have to say, and I tell everyone, including myself, I remind myself that rules and regulations can change, and they are. I just read a study about how they're looking into changing New Orleans, Jersey City, all of these places that had, you know, Airbnb friendly. They're saying, you know what, we don't want to have them anymore. And while it's bad maybe for the investor, it's now going to put more properties in the supply for first-time home buyers to go ahead and to purchase. So there's a negative, there's a positive. It really depends on who you are and what your intent is with real estate.
You know, I take issue with people who look at millennials and say, well, you're trying to buy an apartment in Manhattan. Of course it's expensive, or in San Francisco. But a lot of the great jobs with good career trajectories are in those kinds of cities. Yeah. So what are millennials to do if you actually want to buy a home? Because we know that if you're renting, you're basically throwing that money away, because often landlords will raise the rent in another year or 2 years after your contract's up.
Well, you should only buy if you can, and that means you have the job security, you have money in the bank, you have all of those things, and I think that's the problem. We always say you have to buy, it's the best thing to do, but home prices have been gaining so much faster than rents that sometimes it's just difficult to be that buyer. But again, just like I said before, when you say, well, I'm gonna buy a home, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be your primary. You could still really have the benefits of real estate by owning in other markets and then just renting until you have the ability to buy. Never rush into buying. And I know I'm a realtor. I'm going to say, no, buy. I want to make that money. But, you know, the reality is, if you want to get rich in real estate, you have to do it right.
But those rates, though, they're low now.
They're very low. And again, look, even if they go up to, 4%, 4.5%, that's still insanely low. I mean, again, years ago, we were talking 5%, 6%, which technically is still pretty low. But it's mortgage rates, but it's also home prices, which are supposed to not go up as much as years past, as much as this year. I mean, some people predict anywhere from 2 to 5%. Some people predict that they're actually going to drop. So what does that say? That says that people know nothing. And
they can't predict anything.
Can't predict anything. And just to do what's right for you. Really go, meet with your bank and look at, should I be renting? Should I be owning? And what that looks like, what my future looks like, and if I can, in fact, go ahead and buy.
So I guess then it's a personal choice.
Of course.
All right, well, we will have to leave it there. Sam DeBianchi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.